Go ahead.
What's up, y'all? This is the Nature Girl 30 here, and hey, we are in 2015 right now, and I know that this is gonna be a 2014 list, but hey, I like best and worst lists. I'm a huge fan of countdown lists, so why not? Especially the fact that the wrestling business has kind of changed, and there's really nothing interesting to talk about. But I just want to have some fun with this, and I have brought two of the most awesome guys along to be a part of this Knights of the Wrestling Ring audio. I have brought with me Mr. Griffin, also who I know as Irvin. And you want to talk about your channel, Irvin?
Um, yeah, a little bit. Lately, I've taken more of a, shall we say, more of a political turn, especially with events that's been going on the last couple of years. But I haven't forgotten what I originally started this channel as. I originally started it as a wrestling channel. So I haven't forgotten its roots, shall we say. But this is one of those that I like participating in because you can only do so much heavy stuff. You need a break from it, and this is a well-needed break from it all. But as far as the wrestling goes, I've been a wrestling fan since I was like in the fifth grade, which would have been 1984, 85. So going on 30 years.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, you were a wrestling fan way
So
before I was. But
yeah, so
no, go ahead, man.
so basically, I saw the 80s era, new generation era, attitude era, ruthless aggression, and just about everything in between. I think the other guys on YouTube that might know more than me is like good mic work for Slick Daddy, but that's about it.
That's true. And not to mention, this is the most awesome of awesome heels in the wrestling circuit, in my opinion. More awesome than The Miz. I am talking about Brandon Goins, probably the best heel ever. Brandon, you want to talk about your YouTube channel?
Well, why not? Haven't been active in months, but screw it. uh, basically, on my channel, it started out as a anime kind of thing. I'm a big fan of anime and stuff like that. But I'm also a huge wrestling fan, so I decided, well, why not make wrestling videos to go along with these? Eventually, that's all it became, but certain things happened, and I had to stop making videos. But yeah, got a webcam computer finally, so I'm gonna start again very, very shortly.
Yay! Because I'm not gonna lie, man, I really did like your videos, and I really missed the fact that you stopped making them. But I know how bad the product has gotten lately. But we're not gonna talk about the bad, just the bad. We are gonna mention some of these, the top five best and worst matches of 2014. But instead of talking about the worst, because we're gonna have lots of fun with the worst, we're gonna talk about the best matches. Everybody pretty much had their top five choices of the best matches, and we're going to talk about the top five of each person, from Irving down to Brandon, and also including myself. Brandon, I actually found it interesting, but I do agree with you here. Your top five, your number five was the Usos versus Golden Stardust, which I think was a really great match, and I do agree with you there. Why did you pick it as number five?
It was well, Golden Stardust versus the Usos was probably one of my favorite tag team feuds in some time. The only other recent one I can remember, honestly, was Team Hell No versus the Shield. And that's been a little bit. Cody Rhodes, in my mind, has taken this Stardust gimmick, which so many people thought was so stupid, and just ran, proving yet again that he can take crap and turn it into gold.
Yes.
No pun intended.
Yes, I highly agree. His gimmick with Stardust is far better than Goldust's gimmick. I never thought I would ever say that, but he surpassed Goldust by far with the whole bizarre thing. And I love that about him. And the match that he had with the Usos was satisfying to me because honestly, it's not the Usos' fault, but the Usos had the most boring title reign in the tag team history of the WWE. It was so freaking boring. Like there was nothing interesting about the Usos when they had the titles. They were just holding on to them. But when Golden Stardust kind of came in, it just was like it was refreshing for me because these guys were interesting. These guys had they had something that made you want to watch, let alone made you want to root for them, even though they were heels. They actually brought out something better in the tag team titles, better than the Usos could ever do. That's just me personally. Irvin, you got any comments about it?
Yeah, I didn't watch. I only seen one of their encounters. I believe it was at Hell in the Cell. What I saw, but yeah, it was. I mean, by that point, the feud was pretty much played out. But I remember watching some of the segments on Raw, and and it was very good. And I love the Usos as well. And it's not their fault, but they did become kind of boring. I think the team of the Rhodes brothers really did put some interest back into the Usos. And by the way, I totally agree with both of y'all on Cody Rhodes. His Stardust gimmick, he has surpassed Goldust to the point where Goldust is actually the same straight one.
That is true.
And Stardust is like the weird, crazy one. And going into this team, it was the other way around. It was originally it was Goldust that was the crazy one. Cody Rhodes was the straight one, but that changed when Cody Rhodes became Stardust, which incidentally, that was one of his father's original nicknames back in the day.
Really?
I just thought I'd add a little tidbit of history.
I didn't know that. That's cool,
American
man.
Dusty Rhodes, he was actually called Stardust Dusty Rhodes.
Wow, I did not know that. That's awesome. And now that we had that really awesome tidbit about the American Dream, let's talk about Irvin's choice for number 5. Now I know you didn't actually put this in order, but I'm just going to talk about the number 5 that you have that you have chose that I got written down here. Your number 5 that you have is the Wolves versus the Hardys versus Team 3D, a final match for the best out of 5 series. Now, I didn't see Team 3D's match with the Wolves and Hardys, but I know that the Wolves and Hardys can throw down. And we all know how Team 3D can throw down. So, I haven't seen the match, but I want to hear your perspective on it.
I actually saw 5 matches. I mean, it was one of the few things I did turn into TNA. Because I figured they would be, at the very least, watchable. At the very most, just great matches. I mean, and we knew at the end it was going to put the Wolves over. I mean, to me, that was the only logical choice because what good would it do for the Hardys or the Dudleys? And I still call them the Dudleys. I know they're T3D, but what good would it have done for either one of them to win the belts?
That's true. That's true.
Really.
But I guess
because I figured it was a plot device to put the Wolves over. But you had the Hardys who, while older, especially Jeff, they still take risks. Then you have the Dudleys who are still brutal. And one thing about their style, even though it's the hardcore style, it's still a grounded style. And a ground style usually doesn't take as much toll on your body as a high risk style, like the Hardys have. The Wolves have a little bit of both. You have Davey Richards, who, while Ariel, he's more of a ground dude.
Mm-hmm.
While Davey Richards, he's kind of like the bastard love child of Chris Benoit and Dynamite Kid with karate skills, basically. So, yeah, I mean, think about look at his style. I'm serious. Look at his style. His style is just like remember the Dynamite Kids from back in the day. Almost exactly. From the suplexes to the high impact. I mean, he just adds his own style. I think style to it, but he's basically a clone of Benoit and the Dynamite Kid. But anyway, getting off of that, the match itself, the final match, was extremely brutal, extremely awesome. And I imagine all 6 men had to be checked out by the doctor when it was over.
I wouldn't be surprised.
And it was a great wrap-up to that best of 5 series, which all the matches were strong in that series, by the way.
Yeah, that, and I'm gonna go into an interesting tidbit before I get into mine. My number 5. I found it interesting after literally tallying up y'all's list. I found it interesting that everybody's best match had either TNA, WWE, and NXT in it. Like, I never really expected all 3 brands to be on a best list. But then you can also think about TNA. When it comes to wrestling, there's only a handful of times that TNA has not done good with it. There hasn't been a lot of failure matches when it comes to wrestling in itself. Storylines, yes, they flub up, they screw up, it goes in a weird, wonky direction. But when it comes to actual wrestling, I personally feel that TNA is spot on. NXT is by far awesome, in my opinion, pretty much because of the creativity and how open they are. And I guess I can see why everybody likes it. And WWE has had their positive points. But before I get off tangent here, I'm going to talk about my number 5. I hate, it's kind of sad that I'm the only person that chose this from WrestleMania 30. But Andre the Giant Over the Top Battle Royal, I'm sorry, I chose for number 5. And I'm the only one that did. And I guess because this is something that's new, we kind of all expected what was going to happen later on. And this is something that's totally new since Money in the Bank is now its pay-per-view. It gave everybody an opportunity to shine. Not to mention how Cesaro pretty much paid homage to what Hulk Hogan did back in the day, what he did with the Big Show. I think it literally did put Cesaro on the map after what he did. Everybody was talking about that. Plus, it showcased all the talents from the mid-card. And it gave people a chance to at least go out there and show what they were made of. And I loved it for that reason. And it was something new, and I'm hoping they do it this year. But it seems like, I don't know if they're going to do it this year. But that's something I kind of hope that they continue doing. Because it was a great premise. Especially paying homage to the late, great Andre the Giant.
Yeah.
What are y'all's thoughts on it?
Brandon's your name, right? You go ahead first.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I don't really think I got much to say.
Yep. Yeah. The only thing I was going to say.
Does anybody have anything to say about the match?
Good grief.
Sorry.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah, okay. The only thing I was going to say on Regina's choices, it's not a bad choice. Actually, that was one of the things I love. When I go back and look at WrestleMania 30, that's one of the matches I do look at. The Andre the Giant Battle Royal. And seeing Cesaro, who, if you look at him, you can tell he's nicely built and everything, but you don't think he's that strong until you see it. But to see him pick up the Big Show, walk like 2 or 3 steps with him, and basically body slam him over the top rope, that should have propelled him to higher than what he is. I mean, and it's a shame, but for the moment in itself, it was a great moment.
Yeah. It really did kind of pay a lot of respect to what Andre the Giant did. Because honestly, if it wasn't for that, WWF wouldn't be on the map.
That's really why I didn't have too much to say about it, because it's like I didn't want to go out on a rant about how badly they dropped the ball afterwards.
Oh. It's all good.
So that's why you said say something.
Yeah. It's all good. All right.
But I agree with Brandon. Drop the ball afterwards. I mean, I ain't gonna go into no rant
Yeah.
totally agree. You'll get no argument from me on that.
I think everybody pretty much can admit and agree that they dropped the ball on Cesaro after that was the pinnacle of his career. And we can all agree that they dropped the ball on him when it came to that. But before we all go on a rant about Cesaro, let's talk about Brandon's number 4 best choice. I'm kind of shocked that this is number 4, but I guess I can kind of understand. Brandon's number 4 is Bobby Roode versus Bobby Lashley. And I guess I was kind of shocked it was number 4 because I thought it would be a little higher than that. But seeing the rest of your choices, I can kind of agree. But what is your reasoning why you have it for number 4?
Well, this is one of the few matches in TNA that I can honestly remember truly enjoying. I didn't get the chance to watch the Hardys and the Wolves and the Dudleys, unfortunately. That was my fault. But I remember watching this match because I saw it show up on my thing, and I said, well, damn, they actually did something pretty interesting. They made it seem like Bobby Roode actually had to try to beat Bobby, which is something that they cannot do in TNA very often, the whole Topple the Monster deal. I mean, they dropped it with a fist. They dropped it with pretty much every powerhouse that I can remember.
Yeah.
Them having. Matt Morgan's another one. Yeah. I'm happy to see that Bobby Roode got his due. I wasn't crazy about the finish to it, but overall, I say this is one of my favorite matches.
Yeah. I mean, I guess because I guess I would pretty much consider Bobby Roode to be somewhat of a powerhouse because he's he's definitely done things that you would never think that someone in his weight class would ever be able to do. So I guess I would consider him to be a powerhouse. And I actually did see that match, and that match was great. I didn't really have it on my list though, because I felt that there were other matches that kind of surpassed that. But let's go to Irvin's number 4 that he's chose. Now but this is something that you did not put in order, and I have to remind myself of that. But for your number 4, you chose Daniel Bryan versus Batista versus Randy Orton at WrestleMania 30. What was your reason why you have that as number 4? I know you didn't have it in order, but I'm just curious to hear what your thoughts are.
Yeah, it wasn't a ranking per se, but the reason it's on my list is more for the moment. Although the match itself was not bad, and quite frankly, you might say, in a way, because of a match that's on my worst category, which I'm sure will come up later, that match pretty much saved the end of WrestleMania.
Yeah, I got to agree with you there.
And they got the crowd back into it, because after Undertaker, the crowd was pretty much dead. In fact, from what I heard, people left the arena after that match.
Yeah.
Bryan Batista and Randy Orton to get the crowd back.
Yeah, that was the only thing that kind of brought people back. Yeah.
For the moment, and basically, it's almost. I don't know if you two agree with me or not, because I'm sure you guys would have seen this one. It's basically almost a retelling of WrestleMania 20. The way it ended and everything. The only thing you're missing is bring down Brie Bella in place of Eddie Guerrero or something. That's about it.
Okay.
That did not need to happen.
No.
Yeah, but I even made a video once about that. I was like, will they try to recreate WrestleMania 20 with Daniel Bryan? Which it was almost that, because I mean, look at the spot with Batista doing the Batista Bomb and the RKO with Randy Orton at the same time. That was almost reminiscent of when Shawn Michaels, Triple H, double body slam Benoit through the table. It was almost the same thing, except that one didn't have the stretcher bit.
Yeah, but I mean, I guess it's just kind of
the moment
it's kind of bittersweet and sour to say if it's like WrestleMania 20 because of what happened. But I understand what you're saying. It's somewhat similar. It kind of makes me sad to think about it though, because I mean I'm gonna be real. I miss them both. But yeah, I can kind of see where you're getting at from there.
Yeah, and I don't talk too much about WrestleMania 22 because while the match itself is still a favorite of mine, it's because of what happened afterwards. It makes it hard for me to look at it.
Yeah,
Sometimes.
it just makes me sad sometimes. But on a moving on from that note, and I'm gonna try to make a decent transition here.
That's why I chose Daniel Bryan, Batista, and Randy Orton though, because of the moment and the well-told story going into it.
Yeah, yeah, I will agree.
That's the reason why Daniel Bryan to this day is still over.
Yeah, that's true. I will agree. They actually did do a good build for that. But going on from there, let's talk about the number 4 that I picked. Honestly, my number 4 was somewhat similar to what Irvin chose for his number 5, except you had Team 3D and I just had the Hardys versus the Wolves for the TNA Tag Team Championship. That's what I pretty much chose because I love that match. That match was amazing. I mean, it was just amazing, and I just wish that they actually had a lot more decent tag team matches like that in the WWE. But that was probably the best Impact tag team match I have seen at that time, and I don't even watch that often. That I loved it. I loved every bit of it. I was screaming to the top of my lungs, jumping on my bed with happiness. I've never felt that in a while. I love the Wolves, and it was just a great passing of the torch match. And it was done so well, especially in the 8-sided ring or 6-sided ring. I can't say 8, I mean 6. It was just spectacular. I loved every bit of it. But yeah, that's my number 4.
You know what my favorite? You know what my favorite part of that match though was?
What?
It wasn't really in the match itself. All of the matches, because that's something you see in a lot of Japan wrestling, where they laid down the belt and they got on one knee and they held out their hands to their and you only do that with very established opponents, and you defeat them. That's often a thing that's done in Japanese wrestling.
Yeah, that is true.
I thought that was a nice touch.
That is true.
I should have my tag team wrestling fan card revoked for missing those
matches. You can always go back and watch them on YouTube. I kind of wish that Impact kind of had something like the WWE has with their whole network. I wish they had something like Netflix, to where you can just pay like a small fee for a month and you can watch whatever match you want, or maybe a year. I wish TNA had something like that, but if they do, I don't know about it. And if you guys actually know if they do, let me know, because I mean, there's only so much my DVD-R can hold. But let's talk about number 3 that was chosen by Brandon. Your choice, and I can kind of understand this, was Dean Ambrose versus Seth Rollins. Probably one of the most interesting feuds that I've seen post Shield. I mean, it was awesome. Like but they were great at during FCW before it became NXT. So I can understand these guys can throw down.
Yeah, I chose this match more based on their Hell in a Cell showing than anything else. I felt like that moment where Dean just got to let loose on Rollins, and where they sort of mimicked Mick Foley's bump off the cell.
Yeah.
I thought that was a nice moment too, although I understand a lot of people were mad that, oh, you know, they only went like a quarter of the way up there and fell off. It's like, that cage is taller than the one Mick Foley fell off, and he almost died. You expect those two to do that?
Yeah. But that's true.
And you also look at it like, it led to a really surprise ending, which that is so rare these days, that people are genuinely surprised by an ending.
Yeah. That's true.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna really talk much about that match because I've already ran it enough on my review.
Yeah.
I
It's like
hope
they try to
that
get Undertaker Shawn Michaels with that ending.
yeah.
Oh boy.
I hope that when Dean eventually starts feuding with Rollins, probably after he cashes in, that he finally gets his payoff against Rollins and hopefully wins the title. Please.
Yeah, let's hope so. But let's move on to Irvin's choice. Well, Irvin, like I said before many times, he did not list this in any kind of ranking. He just put 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Your choice for number 3, well, actually, what you put down for number 3 is Johnny Mundo versus the Puma Kid. I can guess this is from Lucha Underground, correct?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. What were your thoughts on that match?
Okay. For those of you that don't know, Johnny Mundo used to be John Morrison in WWE, and Johnny Nitro before that. So I'll establish that in case somebody listens to this and asks, who the hell is Johnny Mundo? I was like, Johnny Mundo used to be John Morrison. So now that we established that, this was like on the pilot episode of Lucha Underground, which so far from what I've seen of it, I've been very impressed. Every show they've had, while not spectacular every time, they've always had at least one good to great match. And for me, the match of the year for Lucha Underground, I mean, I know they haven't been around a year, but to be the match of the year was between that and the ladder match. And I actually told Nature Girl about this, and she was like, what? They had a ladder match? Yeah. Only that one added Big Rick, who you might remember as Ezekiel Jackson.
Big Zeke!
But I went with the one match, which was totally awesome. I mean, you got to see moves out of Johnny that you didn't get to see out of him when he was John Morrison. And Puma Kid is unbelievable. Think Rey Mysterio back in his prime.
Ooh.
Only a little bit taller and muscular.
A little bit taller.
Yeah, that guy, he's unbelievable. Puma Kid is unbelievable. I mean, I hope he stays where he is at this current time. I don't want to see him go to TNA. I definitely don't want to see him go to WWE. Because WWE don't know jack or how to use fights unless they're named Daniel Bryan or maybe, well, I almost said CM Punk, but they dropped the ball with him too. But yeah, I would encourage you, if neither one of you find
Well, I agree with you there. I gotta go back and watch that match.
Yeah. Yeah, it is an awesome spectacle.
Well, that sounds spectacular, and that's something that I'm gonna have to go back and actually watch. But let's move on to my number 3 choice. I don't know whether or not you guys have actually watched watched NXT TakeOver. And but the one thing I can say about NXT is that they know how to do their divas right. They're not just model divas that just sit there and just like do a few moves and get hurt if they like trip on a toe, and then it just lasts 2 seconds and it's over. And they have the most boring backstage segments and stuff like that. I can say NXT always raises the bar every time I watch it. From the small, I haven't watched it like every single day, but the times when I do watch it, especially the pay-per-view, I'm always blown away. My number 3 choice is Charlotte versus Natalya and NXT TakeOver. That was the main event of the show. That even beat the main event. I think the main event was supposed to be Adrian Neville versus Sami Zayn. That surpassed that by far. That was one of the best matches. Not to mention the Nature Boy was out there, as well as Bret Hart was out there, which was awesome. Either or, it was one of the best Diva matches I have seen in so long, and I was so crunk about it. And it was such a great match, and that's what I really want divas in this generation, especially in the WWE, like the main roster, to be like. I would love to see that happen. And Natalya really did kind of amp up her career after facing Charlotte. Even though she put Charlotte over, she still put on a spectacular match. And she's the type of diva that will make you raise the bar. And I'm hoping that that will be the case to the divas that are in the main roster now. But that's why I love it. That's my number 3.
Yeah. I haven't seen that match, but I have seen clips of Charlotte.
Yeah. I completely agree. Natalya is my favorite current diva, and I was so happy to see her get that match the way she did.
Yeah. It was amazing.
You now got me wanting to go to the WWE Network and looking up that match.
Look up that match. Look it up. Look it up. One of the best matches on the card.
When Charlotte makes it to the main roster,
God help her.
For the love of God, WWE, do not ruin her.
God help her.
Yeah, because I think most of her, I like how she still has some of that nature boy Ric Flair Batiste, but she makes her own image. She doesn't live off her father's name.
She combines gymnastics with with traditional style wrestling. Something that you don't see. She did the perfect fusion of two styles of fighting. Not so much fighting. She actually blended wrestling and gymnastics together, and it works. It looks amazing. She's probably one of the only divas that have done that in this generation. That's creativity right there. I love that.
I'd love to see Charlotte versus Eve Torres. Just saying.
Oh no. Don't get Irvin started on Eve Torres.
Yeah, because I was a huge fan of Eve, especially when she was a heel. I mean, I liked her as a face, but when she was a heel, personality-wise, she was awesome. I mean, I understand. I mean, you do what you got to do in life, but I do miss her sometimes. And it kind of cheated me if the dream match that I want to see was her and AJ Lee at WrestleMania 20 at WrestleMania 29. Yeah. Because rumor was that they were going to do that, but then she left.
Let's not get him started on Eve Torres. He's going to be talking about her for an hour and a half.
I know we said we weren't going to get too much negative into it, but Caitlin's another one they dropped the ball with. And when she won the Divas title, I was actually, as big of a fan of Eve as I was actually cool with it. Because I liked Caitlin as well. That was one of the few things WWE got right. It's just too bad they didn't handle her right after she won the belt.
No. Yeah, we probably need to move on to number 2 because Irvin's gonna start talking about Eve and won't stop. Nothing wrong with Eve. I mean, I'm not a big fan of hers, but although she is a great wrestler. But let's get started with number 2. As we're getting close to number 1. Brandon's number 2 was AJ Styles versus Kazuchika. I said it before. Kazuchika Okada and Michael Elgin. I did not see that match, but my guess is that match was at Bound for Glory, right? When they were in Japan?
No, it was actually the Ring of Honor and New Japan Pro Wrestling crossover show.
Oh, wow. I did not see that.
I was like, okay, that's either Japanese or Ring of Honor.
That match right there just proved why, number 1, I never want to see Michael Elgin in WWE. Never. Because they will fucking ruin him.
You know, Brandon, I'm with you on a lot of these stars.
AJ Styles too. I used to say, oh, I would kill to see AJ Styles versus Daniel Bryan, and I still would, but not in WWE. Just no. I didn't really know too much about I can't say his name now either, Regina. I can't. I didn't know too much about him before I watched that match, but I went back and watched some of his other stuff, and he is extremely talented. It just reminded me why Japan, next to Canada, was always so big talent-wise for wrestling. It's just like, you know what? It's got to be pretty sweet being a wrestling fan living in Japan with folks like that over there.
Oh my gosh, you're a freaking celebrity. Right, you're a celebrity, which makes me wonder why MVP came back. He should have stayed.
Agreed. Oh God, don't get me started on MVP.
Oh no.
Manager.
I won't get you started on a rant. I won't get you started on a rant. But I will talk about.
If you have not.
No, go ahead, Brandon.
Sorry. If you have not seen this match, people that are listening, go watch it. It is absolutely incredible.
And that is something I'm probably going to do. But moving on to Irvin's number 2 that he has on his list, Austin Aries. And he actually has something in common with Brandon. Because I think Brandon chose Bobby Roode versus Bobby Lashley. He chose, but it wasn't number 2. But he chose for number 2 that he had Austin Aries versus Bobby Lashley. You want to talk about that match that you like?
Sure. Yeah, I got it because I'm a big fan of Austin Aries anyway. And I love the way that TNA has handled Bobby Lashley. Because for once, and I don't want to get too much on this, but because like I said, I like fun and wrestling. Like I said, it's my escape. But I like that TNA, for once, did a black wrestler where he didn't have a rapper gimmick, didn't have a thug gimmick, didn't have some kind of gospel gimmick. He was just straight up badass. And I love that. And that's what made me renewed my fandom for Bobby Lashley. And I've always been a fan of Austin Aries. So when this match was going to take place, I was like, and this was at a period when I wasn't too big on TNA. But when I found out this match was going to take place, I was like, oh, I've got to watch this match. That it was everything. It was just about everything that I hoped for. I mean, Bobby Lashley with the power moves, Austin Aries basically fighting from underneath, even getting the brain buster on Lashley at one point, and Lashley just barely kicking out. I mean, it was an awesome dynamic. I mean, one of the best matches in TNA. Which, by the way, Brandon, I liked your choice too of Roode. I didn't mind Roode versus Lashley either. I liked both of the matches they had as well. But I loved Aries versus Lashley.
Yeah, I agree because I'm a huge fan of Austin Aries. Bobby Lashley, in my opinion, is the black version of Brock Lesnar. And that dude can bring it.
Oh my God.
He is. He is the black Brock Lesnar. I said it. I don't care if y'all do think it's prejudice. I'm going to be real. It ain't prejudice because those two are powerhouses. It's a compliment. Okay? They complimented each other.
Thank you. Thank you, TNA, for being the first company to make not the first company, but the first big company in this generation to make a black world champion. Thank you. Take note, Vince. Take note, Vince.
Yeah, I mean, the closest thing that Vince ever had, and I don't want to get too much on it, but the closest thing Vince ever had was when he had Mark Henry as world heavyweight champion.
That's true. That's true. But, I mean, they pretty much dropped the ball on Mark Henry. We can rant about that all day. I know I can. But about Bobby Lashley, and for those that say that I'm being prejudiced, I can't be prejudiced if I'm black, people. I can actually say that. Irvin can actually say that. And we're giving Brandon the permission to say that, so it's all good.
Yeah, but yeah, TNA did Lashley right though. They didn't try to give him no gimmick. They took him for what he was, a straight up badass.
Exactly, and they did it right when it came to Bobby Lashley. Unlike WWE, that tried to make him a babyface throughout the whole time, and that didn't work. They actually did a good job of making him a heel and larger than life at TNA. So I'm all for TNA when they had Bobby Lashley on there, and I enjoy, and I think that match was awesome. But moving on to my number two, is kind of different from y'all's, but honestly, this was probably one of the best faction feuds I have seen since the Nation of Domination and DX. I'm talking about the Wyatts versus the Shield at Elimination Chamber 2014. I enjoyed the ever loving crap out of that match because it really showed what Luke Harper can do. You never expected a dude that big to be flying off the walls like every 5 seconds. He's a high flying big guy, landing on people right and left. You saw what Seth Rollins can do, and Seth Rollins, in my opinion, is more like organized noise. He's not like Jeff Hardy when people keep comparing him to Jeff Hardy. Jeff Hardy is just a big mass of chaos, while Seth Rollins is organized noise. He will jump off, but he will jump off with precision, and he knows exactly where he's going to land. You don't see that with a lot of high flyers. They usually fly, and they expect to land somewhere. There's only a handful of high flyers that have the precision that he has, and it enhanced the match by far. Not to mention that with the other two, with Eric Rowan and Bray Wyatt, as well as Roman Reigns and Dean Ambrose, they just made the match work. They all had great chemistry. It was amazing, and it was just got you pumped. And even if Elimination Chamber sucked, it still gave you the energy to finish the whole pay-per-view. That's what happened with me. I thought it was awesome. I really, really did. What are y'all's thoughts on that match?
Now I'll be honest, I've only heard of it. I got an idea of what went on in that match because they had a rematch on Raw.
Yeah.
So I got an idea of it. I haven't actually seen the Elimination Chamber match, but I've heard a lot of great things about it. And that's another one I'm going to have to look up. Because this was before the WWE Network, when they were still having pay-per-view. And I was like, after the Royal Rumble, I was like, there's no way in hell I'm paying $50-$60 for this if they're going to put out crap like this.
Yeah. I mean, it was amazing. It was like really, really great. I loved it. I really did. I thought it was awesome. But let's move on to actually the best match in 2014. We're going to go with Brandon's best match. His number one for 2014. Your number one was Okay, your number one was Adrian Neville versus Sami Zayn. Great match. But is this the one from NXT TakeOver? Because I know they've had a few matches on NXT.
No, it's actually the most recent one. That'd be NXT R Evolution.
Oh, okay. I didn't see that one. I think I missed that one.
It's just an example of how amazing WWE could be once Triple H has full creative control of the company. Once Vince steps down, another decade from now, he can take WWE and make it something great. Because just look at this, people. Multiple pinfalls for more drama, and normally that can be either good or bad, but in this case it was good because it showed Sami Zayn's determination to finally beat Neville and get the championship. And that pop when Sami Zayn won the belt, the entire NXT locker room coming out to congratulate him, that was just one of the best moments of the year.
Wow.
And to top it all off, Kevin Owens turning on Zayn at the very end and setting up their feud going into the next year. Just thank you, Triple H. Thank you.
Now I have to go back and watch that match.
Oh, card's going to have to look up, actually. Because I heard the whole card was pretty good.
We actually have a whole bunch of matches to go back and watch after this.
what I could see of NXT, they remind me a lot of the Ring of Honor crowds or the old ECW crowds without the language. Not that I mind it yet, but
I gotta go back and watch that match because I always known that Sami Zayn and Adrian Neville can put on a great match. These guys are amazing. And also the fact that they actually had an NXT match. I think they had an NXT match at WrestleMania. Oh, one of the pay-per-views. I can't remember if it was WrestleMania or not. I don't think they did WrestleMania. But the fact that you were able to put an NXT match on a pay-per-view with Sami Zayn and Adrian Neville on it shows how great these guys are. Shows how much faith the business actually has on them. Like, it shows how much they know that they have a great talent. And you can just tell in how they perform. They just work. They just click together. But moving on to go ahead, Brandon.
I'll try to make this last point quick. Just looking at the crop of talent that we have coming up, we have Adrian Neville, Sami Zayn, Kevin Owens or Kevin Steen for your ROH fans, Prince Devi or Ben Baylor, Kenta, the Lucha Dragons if they ever get back up to the main roster. The Ascension just got there. Charlotte, and Sasha Banks. The future's bright, people, if it's done right.
Yeah, I agree. I really agree with that. But let's talk about Irvin's number one. Well, this is the one that he just had on the list, not ranking. I keep saying that, but I'm doing this to remind myself. Your number one was Daniel Bryan versus Bray Wyatt. And was this part when Daniel Bryan broke out of the Wyatt family? Or was this before?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just after the cage match when he left the Wyatt family.
Oh, okay. Okay.
This is like a week or so after.
You want to talk about that match?
Oh, yes. Because I know you don't. Because I know you try to keep things clean, Miss Nation Girl. But I just got to say it. This match at the Royal Rumble, which was the opener, the official opener. This match was the only thing to shit on that pay-per-view.
Oh, God.
This match probably did more for Bray Wyatt's career than any match he had the rest of the year, including his feud with John Cena.
Yeah.
This match showed what Bray Wyatt could do one-on-one, because we already knew what Daniel Bryan could do.
Yeah, that's true.
But this match showed what Bray could do one-on-one. And that's the one thing I liked about it. For once, a heel went over clean. No BS, no outside interference. And I like that touch where after the Wyatts initially interfered, Luke Harper and Eric Rowan, he went outside. You know, the referee had already kicked him out, but then they was going to go back, but then Bray Wyatt said, no, guys. I don't need you to fight my battles.
Yeah.
I got this.
That was a nice touch.
I'm like, hey, this heel's got some balls.
Yeah, man. I love that. I love that about his character. I thought that was the cool touch. It was a cool touch because it showed that Bray Wyatt really didn't need his minions in order to win. That's why I loved it. I really loved that. I loved that touch. I really did. Even though people were doubting that Bray Wyatt could ever win without his minions, that showed them, that kind of shut up the naysayers. Hey, I can fight without my boys. That's why I liked it. I can agree with that match. That was a good match. But since that was your best, let's talk about my best, which is kind of similar to your number 4. But the only thing that you left out was Triple H. My number 1 was Daniel Bryan versus Triple H versus Batista and versus Randy Orton for the WWE World Heavyweight Championship at WrestleMania 30. I put Triple H in there because if it wasn't for Triple H, there would be no transition to the main event. And then if it wasn't for the main event, it wouldn't have gave an entire turnaround to the whole pay-per-view after what happened. And It was such a great closing moment. Everybody knew who Daniel Bryan was. Even people who have never watched wrestling, everyone in pop culture media knew who Daniel Bryan was after WrestleMania 30. It transformed him into a player. It transformed him into an A player after WrestleMania 30. After that match with Triple H, and then after the main match that led up to it, that completely turned the entire pay-per-view around, and it just put Daniel Bryan like way up there. That's just me. The outcome of it was just phenomenal. The match itself was phenomenal. Even though, of course, we all know that Randy Orton has a tendency to be sloppy, as well as Batista has a tendency to be short. But either or, it kind of worked. It just worked that night. The whole time, it just worked. With Triple H, he still had it. Because I thought that even for WrestleMania 28, you can kind of tell that he was kind of round around the middle. Plus, he was kind of slow. But then I already got my theory on that. But it showed that Triple H actually can still beat somebody up. He can still like choke someone out, and he can still fight. So it kind of made Triple H look good. It made everybody else look good, and it put Daniel Bryan up there at the pinnacle of his career. And he can just go beyond that from there. What are y'all's thoughts on that match?
Oh, I liked it, and I figured if it's the opener, then more than likely Daniel Bryan's going to win.
Yeah.
And when I saw that, and the match, like you said, I think it's Triple H's best match in years. It really was. And some people might say, "Oh, it was slow, it was this, that." Well, let me tell you something. Both guys, even though Daniel Bryan can go to the air, both guys are wrestlers. And one thing about a ground wrestler, you don't risk as much when you're a grounder as you do if you're a high flyer. Like I said, even though Daniel Bryan does take the high risk stuff too, it fits both guys because both guys are, and we know Triple H is mainly a ground wrestler.
Yeah. I agree with that.
Daniel Bryan already showed it.
Daniel Bryan.
No, go ahead.
Daniel Bryan officially arrived that night.
Yeah.
Not that he hadn't already, but I think that moment has cemented him as, until Cena's gone, the number 2 babyface. But I think he can be the number 1 if Cena goes.
Yeah, he really could be. And the whole overall theme of WrestleMania 30, and I've actually talked to Irvin about this, is that it's about change. It's about moving to the future. Everybody in that whole pay-per-view that won, except for Cena and Bray, was from NXT. It just showed that the future is bright if you can just move forward. And that was the pinnacle of that pay-per-view. If everything worked to whether everybody knew won except for Cena, then that would have been an awesome pay-per-view. It probably would have borderline epic. But it did show that Daniel Bryan is here and he ain't going nowhere unless he gets injured really, really bad, which happens. But either or, we're gonna see him at the Rumble. So I'm not gonna like be a naysayer when it comes to that.